Welcome to Will Through the After Party and a very satisfied panel for you this evening. We've made it to yet another end of a Marvel show, but this time we've actually acknowledged what it means to have like healthy fan conversation. And if you know one thing about this show, it's that it was made to endorse healthy fan conversation. So I'm starting the show with a toast, our mission being realized a year end. Cheers, besties.
Cheers.
Cheers. And cheers to all of you watching. It's so wonderful to see all the familiar faces and names in the comments. Hello to Leah P, who's watching, JJ B-Way Watch, and Bunky. Hello, hello. And hello to all of our replayers who will find us later on. Hello, besties. And speaking of besties, oh, sorry, go ahead. There she is. The birthday queen herself. Everyone, a round of tacos to Miss Abobissa, who is not on camera with us this evening, but I'm sure will be creeping around in the comments all night long. Sly and Alexis, you are here though. And it's such a lovely treat to do yet another episode with just the two of you and not have Marissa here to, keep us rational. I feel like the manic energy is really going to come straight through the camera this evening. Marissa's going to come back next week and tie us back all together. But this week, it is the Liz, Sly, and Alexis show. So cheers to us.
Marissa is requesting a shirt check.
Shirt check.
Liz?
Well, I figured it was only fitting since Midnight is coming next week to wear my Taylor Swift Avengers t-shirt. So this is Taylor Swift if she was the Endgame poster. And I'm not going to lie. It's really because I found it in a box when I was unpacking this week and forgot I owned it, so I wanted it to make an appearance. I think I've only worn it in one other episode when we were our other brand name that, can't come to the phone right now.
Rocking the If Queer Romance Was Allowed. Thank you, Danielle.
Brilliant. Alexis, do you want to plug your shirt? I think it's great. I love it.
I am wearing a sweatshirt that actually belongs to somebody else, but got shrunk in the dryer, so now it's mine.
Oh, love.
I feel like that has the same energy as If Queer Romance Was Allowed. Like, is that not like a trope that we can celebrate?
Very much.
Incredible. How are we doing this week, Bestie? Sly, what have you been up to this week?
It's been a week.
Mm-hmm. Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
All night long. It's been a week. Alexis, has it been a week?
Yeah. Woohoo!
I will say. You go ahead. You will say.
Okay. I will say, I may or may not have started rewatching something a couple hours before the show. Got to the end of episode 3 and went, oh, that's when this happens, and paused and put it away.
Love that. I love that.
So,
I had the same experience last night, but it was with a Disney sing-along. The sing-along song VHS from the early 2000s. I had a core memory flashback to the Halloween one, so obviously I found it and put it on, only to realize that the song that was stuck in my head from said sing-along song features strobe lights. And I thought, perhaps 3-year-old Liz watching this on loop is the reason why 25-year-old Liz can't handle strobe lights. So I had the same moment, and I actually, I did end up finishing it because I wanted to hear the rest of the cute little Disney songs, but c'est la vie. Mm-hmm. Alexis, what about your week? Did you have a moment where you watched something and then stopped watching? No? I really didn't.
You didn't go, let me watch the show that, notably has, a very huge, major character death moment, and then remember halfway through watching the show that there was a huge moment?
Well, I did, my mom picks on me because while I cannot anticipate when I'm going to rewatch something, my mom has, a seasonal calendar. So she'll be like, every spring you rewatch Eureka, every spring. But I don't realize it until she tells me. And so the other night she was like, have you already started rewatching Timeless or are you waiting a couple weeks? I was like,
Mother.
I forgot that my bestie, love of my life, Garcia Flynn, unalives Abe Lincoln. I did have a moment where I was like, ooh, ooh.
A little startling for the soul. You know, it's okay. We win some, we lose some. I have to say, I'm going through the comments here. Let's just talk about what everyone's talking about in the comments, because we do see some love for Bunky. Living for the Taylor Swift TikTok series happening on Bunky's account, the newest member of the Swiftie community, Bunky. Welcome. It's finally your first release week as a full-fledged Swiftie. I'm also seeing love for the sing-along songs, including Marissa, who also was watching sing-along songs last night. I don't know how we weren't texting about that, since that's both what we were doing last night. However, if you're watching sing-along songs, DM me your reviews, because I think I'm going to go down the rabbit hole rewatching all of them.
I am living for the Bunky Taylor Swiftification series. And I planned very much to keep up, but listening to things is hard for me. Shocker. So I have not kept up with Bunky's pace. And it's really funny to see, I will know a single song from an album and then have opinions on Bunky's ranking of that single song. And that single song was Enchanted, and I do only know it because of the countless Buddie edits to that song. Mm-hmm. But the point stands.
Bunky sent me very, very, very thoughtful photos of cats this week, which I highly appreciated.
Love. I will say that in my leaving the internet for a week, right? Everyone's aware I left the internet for a week, and it was very jarring to return, but I did return to TikTok. And then when I left the internet, Bunky was on maybe episode 2 of the Taylor Swiftification of me. And then I come back and it's full-fledged 1989 Gaylor era. And I was like, whoa.
The way I was counting down, I was like, I may be able to get through this week because this should be 1989 Gaylor week.
Our most anticipated series is Bunky becoming a 1989 listener. Yeah, felt. Oh, and I see we're about to enter our rep and lover Bunky eras. Listen,
I do know Lover. Mm-hmm. I have listened to Lover, so that'll be exciting too. What?
So I can have discourse.
I can have opinions. Be proud of me.
Absolutely. Listen, we all have our things. I will say, Bunky, to you specifically, there's only one ranking of reputation, and I will be in your comments. So prepare for my stitch. Anyway, what have we been enjoying this week other than the Taylor Swiftification of Bunky, as JJ so adequately, the after-party episode of the Taylor Swiftification of Bunky, where we don't invite Bunky onto the show, and we just talk about how much we love Bunky's content. That sounds great. Other than Disney sing-along songs, I would like to plug, I'm not being paid to say this, Disney Plus, because at least in Canada, I'm assuming it's the same in the States, but if you go to the Disney Plus Halloween section, they have playlists built of all the Halloween episodes of Family Channel shows. So you don't have to go Googling what was the Halloween episode of That's So Raven. It's in a playlist with all of the other Halloween episodes. And that's exactly what my brain wanted. So I was watching That's So Raven, Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. It's so good. So I highly recommend, if you want Halloween in your life, but you can't commit, Disney Plus has you covered. They've done all of the work for you. It's right there. So I spent my Friday night doing that. Also want to plug Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. It's done. We've made it. And as a casual yet intense Lord of the Rings fan, I must say I had a great time. Not enjoying the internet. The internet's really doing a lot with it, but much like other people are casual Star Wars fans and they'll appreciate the content and not involve themselves in the discourse, I've decided to take the high road with Lord of the Rings and not involve myself in the Lord of the Rings discourse, other than to say I had a silly, goofy time. I enjoyed what I enjoyed. I missed things that other people seem to have problems with, and because of that, it was a grand time for me specifically. We had so much fun watching it.
That for you.
Thank you. It was truly a joy. The finale, a bit confusing. I didn't understand where some of the characters went, and then had to remind myself that I haven't really been actively watching TV for the past 3 weeks, and perhaps I should have revisited the past 2 episodes before watching the finale and, forgetting where everyone's been. But, excited for the fan fiction to come. And I'm sure that fan fiction, Rex, will make it onto this show once I dig my way through AO3. Sly, what have you been enjoying this week?
Well, speaking of fan fiction, I have been creating some spreadsheets. We know I love a spreadsheet. One that might, you might see in the future. And then one that's just like my personal rec list, putting all my information and stuff in that. So if you want access to my personal one, let me know. I'll send it to you. But we are working on something to be excited for in the future. But yeah, the other things I've been enjoying, if you can't tell what my current hyperfixation is by these pics, then I don't know what to tell you, bud. But I've been listening to a lot of Omar Rudberg, his music, especially like the slower stuff. I've been really driving with like Doom and La Incondicional. So those have been fun. Little music moment for me. Very rare.
Love that for you.
And then, okay, so we all know how I consume fan fiction, right? I like troll a tag. I find an author I really like, and then I just read all of their fics. So I found a fic that I really liked. It was the fake dating AU. And then I went and read all of it's Elin 98, all of their fics. And then I subscribed to their like AO3 profile. And like a couple days later, I get chapter 1 of a new fic in my inbox. And I was like, this feels like a gift for me personally. And the third chapter posted earlier today, so I have to shout out the fic Finding Home. Every single chapter I finish it and I scream out loud, so I'm having a blast.
I love a fic that makes you just like gasp audibly every paragraph.
It's very good. It is a work in progress, so I love a work in progress if I get to like be there from like the start and just like get the little boost of serotonin every time I get a new chapter. But I understand that if you're like not there at like the ground floor, jumping in like halfway through a work in progress, you get that like whole like binge through, and then it's the sudden stop, and that's no fun. So I will probably update when it's finished.
Can I share a story from my week just on this exact note? I wasn't going to talk about this, but it's really been bothering me, and now I need to know if it's happening to other people. I do not follow a fanfic author on TikTok. It's nothing against them. I just didn't know that they existed. And I got a TikTok with an excerpt of like chapter 41 or something of this fanfic. And it was the exact reaction you had of, I'm going to wait until it's done before I perhaps give it a chance and read it. And I didn't like the video. And I like kept scrolling. And yet, I am getting, like, every other video is like an excerpt from this fic. And it's like, chapter 61, chapter 13, chapter 49. And I'm like, stop! I can't. And I can't get them off of my For You page. And now I feel like I just need to, it's like the universe is telling me to read this fic. And it's not even like,
so funny.
I'm sure it's great, but I'm just struggling because I'm like, I want to wait until it's done. But my For You page, I don't follow the author. They're not getting reposted onto my For You page. And yet I'm getting all the spoilers.
My favorite thing is that Marissa complains about a very specific person with a habit of liking all of her videos and not following her. And it cracks me up every time because there are so many TikTok users who post videos that every single time they come up on my For You page, I will like their video because I enjoy their content, but not enough to follow them. And so Marissa often complains about that habit, and I'm just like, sorry.
I am part of the problem. Yeah, that's a mood. And we have our first cat appearance of the night.
Very exciting.
I'm so happy. Alexis, what does the cat say?
She says, unhand me. I wanted to sit on the arm of the chair all by myself and fall off in about 2 minutes and scare the hell out of you.
Oh, and
I was going to say, though, that my TikTok account situation is hysterical because I keep getting ads for Sly, but I keep getting them. Like they're advertisements for items that like Sly would buy and use that I would not buy and use, but I keep getting them. I've gotten like 100 of them, and I don't interact with them, so I don't know why they keep coming to me.
I need some screenshots next time. I'm curious what you think I would buy.
It's mostly items we put in your packing list that I have no use for, but they're like advertised to me, and I'm like, okay.
That's so funny. It's like the algorithm knows, like, don't target the person. Target the person's biggest shopping influence.
Exactly.
That's so good. I keep getting ads from my employer. And I'm like, I'm not your target audience. I work here. But
every time I get an ad from your employer, it makes me giggle. I'm like, oh, haha.
Already aware. Thanks so much, though. Anyway, Alexis, what have you been enjoying this week?
Well, it wasn't on my list, but I will say I have also been enjoying Sly's fanfiction spreadsheet situation. Thank you. And I won't reveal much about it, but I will say it has taught me more about myself than 3 years of therapy. And it has taught me more about Sly than like most of our actual relationship has. And who Sly and I are as people. Like this has been like a just like
holding on to my chair.
Experience for me.
I think I know the exact conversation you're talking about. Are you talking about how there are 2 tags that I have fixed for that I said these are like the tamest versions of these tags that I picked for my recommendation, and I have way wilder stuff on the sheet that I didn't put for those tags.
It is also what Sly and I have chosen as categories that needed more than one choice. Pretty much, if you want to know who Sly and I are as people, if eventually our audience gets to see the spreadsheet, you just need to look at where we added boxes. End of story.
I feel like now I need to give you my fan fiction history so that Sly can build a spreadsheet and Alexis can therapize me. Like, is that the next step?
There's also a lot of like.
You have the link.
When I am like, so I would like search a tag in my bookmarks, and then I would go through them all and be like, damn, Alexis, we have been on a journey. We have gone some places we should not have gone. Jesus Christ. And then I'll get to a category and be like, oh, well, I have like 100 for this category. But like this totally normal category, like fluff. What is fluff? I don't know what that is. Where do I find
it? It's so hard for me to pick a fluff fic.
Yeah. But like there are some others where I have categories. I have subcategories of some other genres. Anyway, so that was the thing this week. I also watched 911 as per usual. I discovered the Eddie Dispatcher fic that everyone had already read. It was really great. I got teased on a Chuck AU, which I was really excited about, except it doesn't actually exist. And I started rewatching Timeless. That was it.
A Chuck AU, but not Chuck Bass. Are we talking about Chuck Bass?
No, we're talking about Chuck like the show Chuck.
I thought you were going to try and tell me that there is a crossover of Chuck Bass into the 911 universe. And I was like, why hasn't anyone mentioned this before? Like, that is the gateway I needed.
Don't mind me while I'm trolling through AO3 real quick.
If someone's written Chuck Bass Gossip Girl crossover into the 911 universe, that's like priority information to give to Alexis and I. Okay, sorry. You mean a different Chuck entity.
Yeah, there was a show about a guy that works at like what is essentially the Best Buy, and all of the government secrets get downloaded into his brain, and this very conventionally attractive blonde female spy has to be his handler, and it is a thing.
Right on.
And someone made like a collage. What are those called? love of my life. They have a name.
An edit?
Like
an edit?
Like a 911 Chuck crossover.
I
And they
see.
labeled it like a fanfic AU, but they haven't actually written anything. Like it was just like a.
Mhm. Yeah.
I knew JJ would know what Chuck was. Thank you, JJ. JJ and I have scarily similar watching habits.
It's incredible. It's incredible, truly. I'm also, there's something on your list that I would like you to speak to, which is the 911 Step Up Revolution crossover.
All you gotta do is step.
You gotta do a step.
Influence and canon.
Yeah.
I gotta say.
So nobody else seems to be with me on this one, I've got to say. In the fandom, like you're not included, like the general other. But in this week's episode of 911, Eddie Diaz wore a black tank top, which was very similar to the look Ryan Guzman sported in the Step Up films, only with much less muscle definition and bulk. And to me, you could only own one black tank top. There's only one black tank top in the world, and it is owned by these people. Thus, they're the same person. Thus, it is canon. I will be taking no criticism at this time.
This is not a Q&A. This is a lecture. And to just plug you quickly, if you want to follow Alexis's incredible academia outfit teaching journey, please follow Just Alexis Blake on Instagram, because it is the highlight of my day when I see what Alexis is wearing in the classroom.
I am now scared to go back to the campus Starbucks. But yes, it has been quite
That was, in fact, what I enjoyed
this week. Yeah. Not a natural hair color in the joint, which was perfect. I was the only one sporting like a natural hair color. It was fantastic.
I love it. It's so good. Shall we rant? We rant?
Let's rant.
It feels like, the time and place to give you some chaotic takes from our week. And I think that, as per usual, we should take our Marissa time and just keep going, should we need it. My rant this week is, last week I predicted the track list for Midnights and what I thought all the songs were going to be about. And I made it very clear that if 3 songs minimum are not about Adam Levine's sticky situation, I'll be very disappointed. This week, I'm going to do part 2 of my Midnights predictions, but I'm going to talk about how messy I think things are going to get online and give you my checklist of fandom moments I think we're going to see over the next week and a few days. Who's next? Sly, what are you ranting about?
So I had a touch of a manic moment this week.
A touch. Just a touch.
And so I'm going to be going back through all of the things I tweeted while manic and live reacting to to what I posted.
Incredible. I might just defer time to you to allow you to keep going. Alexis, what are you ranting about?
I am presenting a list of essays I could present at a moment's notice based on the 911 on Fox universe with little to no explanation. And now I'm going to give you explanation. This was originally going to include 911 Lone Star, but I had too many on my list. And now I'm looking at my list and I think I don't have enough. So Sly, you may get extra me time. Also, Elizabeth hasn't seen these, but Sly...
Are we outing me? So as you know, I record Point in Progress podcast on Friday nights. And during this week's episode, there was a segment where every single other person on the podcast had played Overwatch 2, and I have not played Overwatch or Overwatch 2. So instead, I was reading through our show doc just to see what was happening.
Yeah.
And as I clicked in, it happened to be the moment where Alexis started typing out her rants. And then I clicked back in a couple minutes later and they were all gone. And I was a little disappointed.
Sly needed entertainment during their show.
You're being nice, though. What actually happened was that Sly got to see me retitle some of these like 16 times and then failed to understand how font in Google Sheets or Google Docs work. And like, anyway. So.
I will say, Sly also watched me do that one day.
Oh,
there is a
feels
day.
So much better.
There is a day during, there's BF before flood. There's AF after flood. It's during F times, flood times. And there was a whole situation with merging laptops and getting an Ethernet cord delivered and trying to watch.
Oh yeah, the elevator thing.
Yeah, the elevator thing. It was bananas. But Sly and I were on FaceTime for hours getting through it, and I was trying to copy and paste my notes into the show doc, but it was copying and pasting in like size 50 font and like triple spacing, and it was like absolutely not okay until I fixed it for me. Both of my laptops.
It was the day I had to learn how to do the production end of StreamYard for the first time because Liz was like, I can't do this on my iPad. You have to do everything.
Yeah,
now when Marissa hosts, she's like, I'm not doing any of the producing, you are. So like anytime Marissa's hosting, I'm doing the producing on the back end. Fun fact.
We're in our producer Sly era, folks. Everyone say yay. And I'm in my Liz MC era.
I cannot wait. It's going to be a great rebrand.
Listen, if there's one thing we can't do, it's talk about rebranding while we're on the show because Alexis will collapse.
I will be out.
Do you have one of 3 emotional liquids ready to support you should you feel like fainting on the mention of a rebrand?
Alexis.
I was too stunned to speak. I do. I finished my vegan cafe con leche, but I have water. So water will have.
Beautiful. That's something. All right. Let's start the rants. Okay, I have to think about what I'm going to say. I only planned my title, which is Midnight Predictions for our fandom as we head into the release of Midnights next week. I am not going to hold back because I have been through every release week since Fearless. I know this fandom inside and out, and things are about to get ruthless up in here for those Taylor and Taylor Nation mentions and likes. So first and foremost, prepare for war on TikTok and Twitter because it's about to get bad quick.
All right. I'm starting with we're starting at Tuesday because that's when things started to get a little spicy. I just put in all caps with periods after every word, family history of mental health problems, and then italics, cancer, and then 3 question marks, followed up by, I swear to God, if the hashtag gay firefighter show gives the frat bro baby cancer, I will quit watching. I stand by that. I agree with that take.
Okay. Essay number 1. Tough Graders, Ableism in the Private Education Space, a micro case study of Dr. Anna Flores' classroom, Eddie. Essay 2, the Domification of Eddie Diaz, and I have a table of contents listed for this one that includes, but is not limited to, the relationship between control and PTSD in combat vets. Many things can be true at the same time. Handcuffs, zip ties at all.
I'm so sorry I have to cut that off. Things that are going to happen on TikTok specifically. We're going to see a lot of people posting their reactions to listening for the first time, a lot of fake tears, a lot of real tears, and a lot of listening parties. No matter if you cry alone or with friends, or you don't cry with friends or alone, your listening experience is valid. Whatever you decide to do is no better or no worse than anybody else. Don't let the FOMO make you feel like a bad fan.
All right, my next tweet is me losing my mind because one of the fics that I've reread like 5 times that is my favorite, like Catholic guilt Eddie Diaz fic. I found the author on Twitter, and also we got a sequel to that fic because I was like, oh my god, I love this fic. I've read it like 5 times and lost my mind. We are now mutuals. Very proud of that. My next tweet I'm saving for my next time segment.
Unrelated. Essay 3. Unrelated. ADHD and consensual submission, praise as a correlating factor. See also Essay 4. Dopamine via praise, focus strategies for adults with ADHD. Essay 5. 10 years late, what Taylor Kelly's character and LA County Dispatch policy have in common. Essay 6, where did it come from and where is it going? An in-depth look at Eddie Diaz's apparent parenting journey.
I did not know how that title was going to end. I was like, oh my God, but it's fine. Okay, what we're going to see on Twitter is a lot of people posting a lot of photos of them with like an exorbitant amount of CDs and vinyl in one hand. Like, you're not going to understand the physics behind people holding so many things in one hand and taking a selfie with their other hand. People will shop until they drop for this release. People will buy the most amount of product you've ever seen in your life. But if you cannot afford anything this release week, it does not make you a bad fan.
All right. This next tweet was a text to the group chat that I immediately said, that should be a tweet, and then tweeted it. It's me. This fanfic looks so fun and fluffy. The tags: angst, panic attacks, drug addiction, child abuse, trauma. You know. The next one is about the heartbreak I experienced where I was like, I wonder how to become a tag wrangler, only to find out that the submissions had closed earlier that day. Next.
Okay, I think we're on 7. Do it for charity, an argument for more workout montages, and a tribute to the 555. I'm not going to go into details, just look it up. Essay 8. The Invisible Bee, fandom's erasure of bisexual Buck canon, with a shout out to Kurtz and Thomas, who wrote a similar essay about Glee. 9, Flowers and Hate, 10 fics I would plaster all over the walls of the 911 writer's room. I have more faith in random people on the internet than I do in a team of paid professionals.
The next thing you're going to see is people freaking out about tour, and people being intimidating about tour dates, people being pretentious about tour dates, and who should have access to what seats, depending on how long you've been a fan and what makes the best fan. It's all bullshit. Everyone is a good fan if you are a good person and you like the music, and there's less noise than there are seats in the stadiums that Taylor's going to be filling. So you'll get your tickets. Don't sweat it.
All right, the next, I saw Danielle, friend of the show, interacting with somebody who I'm a big fan of, and texted Danielle and was like, hey, how do I get an introduction? And then immediately got an introduction. So my next tweet is me freaking out over like a random, like regular person on the internet because, again, I was a little bit manic. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine. And then I tried to procrastinate my homework by looking for a very specific type of article. I did not find it.
10, with the help of tequila, I almost lost focus and almost started a consensual workplace relationship. An analysis of 2010 tough female character writing strategies as used on female characters in 2022, which is alternately titled, Julie is more like than Lucy Donato. Why did you set her up to fail like that? For the love of God, do better. Then we have 11. Those two men fucked, a correlative model examining why women were not brought to that particular frat house.
In conclusion, to use my bonus Marissa time wisely, don't let fandom intimidate you. There is a place for you in the Midnight's Taylor Swift community. We will welcome you with open arms. The negative voices, let them be negative. This is a release week for everybody. This album is new Taylor music, which we have not gotten in such a long time. Let's just agree to be nice to one another and enjoy it together. And if you need a friend, I'm here for you.
All right. So then the article I was looking for, I found 2 similar ones in different fandoms, but I really wanted a case study of a particular fandom. It does not exist, probably because the show came out much more recently than the other 2. And then there is my tweet of me freaking out over Jessica Parker Kennedy being announced as Medusa. Shout out to Marissa. There's a lot of typos in this tweet, but I stand by it. That was my genuine reaction. I have so many more.
12. The roles of verbal aggression and lack of honest communication on the relationship between parental feedback and peer status in the workplace among children with ADHD, a serial moderation model. 13, the Rousey effect, the mediating role of unpacking your toxic masculinity on the negative relationship between actors' ego and martial arts form. 14, honestly, we really just need to talk about how difficult it is to co-parent a child that isn't yours. And Eddie is not doing a really great.
Please finish the statement. I want to know where it was going.
On screen, Eddie Diaz is not clarifying this issue. Like, you want someone to constantly be concerned about their place in your life and their relationship with your child. You do what Eddie Diaz has done on screen, and like, we all just really need to discuss that. Followed by the last one, there are not enough tortilla warmers in this show.
Strong conclusion. So a total of 14?
I think we were at 15.
And that's why Alexis is going to be a PhD in the future, near future. Huzzah! What a rant section. Alexis, as JJ is very rightfully saying, you now need to write all of them. I would like you to be on AO3, but just publishing these essays. Like, it's not fan fiction, it is academia.
I am willing to bet that based on the interaction I've had on Twitter with some fans, that my ideas are not ones that are going to be well received. But I do think they are right. Is
that not the premise of most academia, though?
Hard agree. Also, the idea of using an archive as the platform to post your academic works free and publicly tracks. And I would much prefer everybody put all of their academic articles on a free accessible platform like Archive of Our Own, and not
speak on it.
Okay, I have to find a text that I received from the one and only Mac Reacts.
Yeah.
Again, I was searching for a very specific topic around a very specific fandom. I found an article talking about like Tumblr and language and like similar to whatever. And I shared it with one of the group chats, and Mac was very excited about this and called me our Robin Hood because I said, as long as I have access to all of the databases that my school provides, I will download and send all of the PDFs of any articles you want. If you need access to a journal and you don't have access to it, I am paying a lot of money. Let me know. I will download it and send it to you.
Thus entering Robin Hood era.
Thus entering Robin Hood era. Or, if you write an academic article, post it on AO3.
Listen, we're not asking for much. I think we're asking for just enough, actually. Every week, we need to start like I guess we do have a drinking game. We need to add to the bingo card for this show. Every time Liz exits out of the timer tab, not remembering that we are about to reopen the timer tab, because our next segment, we are entering our She-Hulk era, She-Hulk finale time, and we're about to do a rowdy recap where Liz took 0 notes once again. Hooray. Let's recap this finale. And Liz isn't going to start since I have nothing to go off of. Yeah, you want to start? You go for it. Are we ready? Are we ready, kids? That's where you would say, aye, Captain, if we were SpongeBob fans. But alas, this is not a SpongeBob show.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I know. It's a shock to everybody in my life. I didn't really watch television as a child.
You weren't allowed to watch it in my house.
Anyways.
Okay, that has to be unpacked at a later time. That will be...
On that note, all right, this She-Hulk finale kicks off with... I don't know if it was a spoof of the original show or just the original show. And then we get the use of the anti-Indigenous word that's often associated with this character that I'm super not comfy with, but we continue mentioning on the show. She leaves her really cute apartment and moves in with her parents. We love a move back in with your parent era. Dad is awesome and sprays down all of the reporters.
And then she leaves her parents' house and goes to the meditation center that we saw her go to earlier in the series.
And the murder board.
Y'all are trucking through this.
We're gonna go back to the board if you reread the notes that I just changed, like not even 5 seconds ago, and that's all my time. And now I'm the only one on the show that has watched SpongeBob. I'm very not on my game right now. I'm processing a lot of information. Alexis.
Okay, Okay, she goes to the meditation retreat that is now definitely a cult. And she seems to have no issues with this at all. And then at the same time, our bestie duo is investigating the intelligentsia, and Pug has to go undercover with an AirPod, and then stuff starts happening that we don't like, and Jin is like, nah.
And then we get the fourth wall break where it goes through the Disney Plus and then into the real world. And then we're in the writer's room and they're making some questionable comments. And I sat there and was like, I wonder how many of these are questionable and how many of these people believe. And then we meet the one and only Keavin after a little bit of excessive shaky cam, which stands for...
Oh, I don't know where that is in the doc. I guess we'll talk about it later and what it means. But we have a conversation with Kevin, the robot thing, about the ending of the show. And then we go back to the show and we have the ending of the show that She-Hulk deserves. But Daredevil is there again. And they have like a little outdoor lunch. And Bruce has a son. And is that it? That's all I remember.
The Abomination takes responsibility for his actions, but he doesn't. And then Wong comes to pick him up, and there's a comment made about Wong being a part of another show. And
wait, I completely missed that. Pause the timer. What? What show?
Wong said, sorry, I was busy in another show, when he's breaking out Abomination from the jail cell.
Yeah, Abomination says, were you pulled to another show? And Wong says, it's the era of peak TV or something like that.
Yeah.
Like he was in another Marvel show, or he was watching another TV show and got busy?
I'm pretty sure the implication was he was in another show.
Oh,
so that we'll see Wong in a future.
Yeah. Marissa's saying that he was binge watching another TV show, which is how I took that comment. But
that's not how I took it.
No, you're probably right. He probably was filming in another show. Oh my God, Marvel with all the Easter eggs. Blowing my mind. Truly. I just lost brain cells there trying to map that out. Well, I would say that was rowdy, not quick. We never promised these recaps were going to be quick. But it was rowdy. And we have a lot of details to dig into, including Kevin and that. And we'll leave it at that. Alexis, are you reading comments in confusion?
Don't worry about it.
Okay, cool.
I don't understand my own notes. That's not new.
Oh, I love that for us. Let's do a toast. Sly, do you have anything to crack open for this toast?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Well, I've got an unnamed applesauce brand in a tube that does click when you open it. But definitely not the same satisfying effect. There it is. So we will cover the packaging because some of us need sugar to get through this show. What are y'all toasting with?
Cold brew.
Water.
I'm gonna toast to the murder board, the crime board, which Sly so wonderfully put in the thumbnail for this episode. I felt very represented in that. Cheers besties. Applesauce, please sponsor me. Sly, what are you toasting to?
I am toasting to Pug, my beloved. I know some people on the show had questions about the quality of his character in previous episodes. I've been a fan of him since day one. I'm very happy to see that people appreciate that he's pretty great. So cheers to Pug.
I will say, a coworker that lets you know the best bathrooms in the office, green flag. Green flag. I knew he wasn't going to have a villain arc if that's how they started his writing. Alexis, what are you toasting to?
I'm toasting to the cool visual that was Jin Hulk doing that into that on the Disney Plus menu board.
Yes, like
Into
when
the
she broke
thumbnail?
out of the box.
Yeah. Thumbnail, that's what it's called. Yeah.
It's almost like I make
Cheers.
them for the show every week.
Yeah. I literally, in the notes, I just have brackets as a visual of like,
Yep. So just before we go to our WTF moments of the week, I do want to talk about that moment specifically, because to me, I wish that I was filming my reaction to that. And I do feel that way sometimes watching these shows and seeing the twists, but this specifically, my jaw was on the floor watching them go so literally through the fourth wall. The animation of her coming into the Disney Plus screen, I was kind of losing it. What was everyone else's reaction to that kind of, not like the content of the sequence, but just realizing what they were doing in that moment?
Go ahead. Yeah, I thought it was cool. I saw some commentary from some people that I follow that was like, oh, like, I thought my Disney Plus was broken. I didn't know what was going on, blah, blah, blah. It didn't get me like that. I was like, oh, that's an interesting take. But it wasn't like a mind-blowing moment for me. I think because they were already so deep into the fourth wall break that I was like, oh, this is an interesting fourth wall break. And it was just like an escalation, a natural escalation of where they were going with that commentary. But yeah, the effect was cool. I stand by though the shaky cam following Jen walking through like the studio lot or whatever got super excessive. But
Alexis?
No. So full disclosure, I was watching this episode in the bathtub and I dropped my phone. And when I picked my phone back up, it was on the Disney Plus screen and I really panicked. So I was one of those people. Like I was like, shit.
That's so funny.
Jane kept talking and I was like, what have I done? And then she popped out and it was great.
That is the best watch experience I think anyone had in that moment. That's incredible. Good for you. And then did you rewatch the episode and like see that sequence back?
I did, yeah.
And did you have it?
Yeah, it was. I think it was visually more interesting to me actually the second time because I was not in like fear for my life.
But we're gonna get to the comment. We're gonna get to the comment when we get to the Kevin section. We're gonna stick to the show doc. Alexis, you didn't fear for your life the second time?
Yeah, like my phone's life. You know, I was very much having a moment where like I just needed a second to myself. So I'd gone into the bathroom and I shut the door and it was the only time like the house was not after me. So yeah, it was the second time was very visually stunning. Like I was like, oh, that's so,
Yeah, totally.
Interesting to me. Yeah.
I do love that. I think that to me that moment was significant because that was the moment where it felt like I started to see some of that validation come through. The writing wasn't spectacular, but I did start to see some of the point of the show really coming through crystal clear. And so I got really excited. However, I did want her to do like a Thor Love and Thunder style, like going into different shows to try and find the right one. Like I wanted her, especially where they were filming all the shows at the same time. Like I wanted her to accidentally go on the Loki set and meet Tom Hiddleston and like meet Tom Hiddleston, not Loki, but like him sitting in the chair, like getting his makeup done. And then I wanted to see her go like to Falcon and the Winter Soldier and like all the different sets with different crews and try and find Kevin.
I did think it had that it, to me, almost kind of legitimized the assembled stuff in a really interesting way. Because I think in the past, you and I, at least, Liz, have talked about how some of those seem like so manicured, they're not really interesting to watch. And so I thought it was interesting that like that was the one she jumped into. And then like there are these writers just like chilling. And so it seems like much more of a unfiltered experience than we have actually gotten from the assembled, like the content we've gotten from the assembled brand. So I thought that was kind of an interesting idea.
when they first went into the Assemble, I thought they were going to actually go in to like, I thought it was going to get really meta and it was going to be like the actress talking about She-Hulk and then She-Hulk like coming in. Like I thought it, thought it was going to get like way too fourth wall, like meta for a moment. I was like, don't go there. But then it's like, oh, they're just going into like the Marvel set. Haha, I understand. Yeah, so I did have a moment where I was like, they're doing too much. But then I was like, no, the point is that they're doing too much and they do know what they're doing. So I'm just going to shut the F up and just watch this for a moment and let it just happen in front of us. Okay, I'm seeing, Sly, you want to jump in on this conversation about Kevin. So why don't we just go straight into it and talk about this Kevin situation. Break down the point we all missed.
So I put in my notes, I need this ball cap, thank you very much. Because when I was watching it, I was like, oh, they did a little nod to his ball cap. And then I see in my co-host notes, super unhappy Kevin isn't wearing a baseball hat. And I was like, I swear there was. And then Leah's comment about not having the baseball cap, because we have the 3 lenses for like the eyes or whatever. And then there's the hood over the lenses, and then right above the hood, right where you would put text on a ball cap, was the acronym and then it written out. And I was like, oh, that's such a cute nod to being a baseball cap.
So there was a robot version of the infamous Kevin Feige baseball hat on the Kevin thing. And what does Kevin stand for?
Bunky said Kevin Feige didn't approve him having a real hat, so they made the little robot one. So thanks for that background. Kevin stands for Knowledge Enhanced Visual Interconnectivity Nexus.
I really hope that Kevin Feige now has like a nameplate on his desk that reads that. I will say, I really felt for a moment that like the writers watch our show, because how many weeks in a row have I said, Kevin Feige, I'm speaking to you directly? Like I've done that countless times and said like, you need to fix this. I'm calling you out. You blah, blah, blah. So then when she went to Kevin directly, I was like, oh no, this is for all the people that want to know what Kevin thinks of all of this. And
for the Aman Villanis.
So I was feeling a little like, okay. But I do it for the greater good of representation and feminism. So I like to think, not in the sense of like toxic dude bro nature, which is a whole other thing. But I know that it was a bit of a mixed reaction to this Kevin thing in the episode. So maybe before we go all the way, what the fuck, let's talk about some of our other what the fuck moments of the week. I'm going to keep mine short and sweet. The Bruce has a kid angle, I was like, why? Why now? Why here? Why this? I get like their family, so like I understand that. But like I just was like, I don't care. Like you've not set me up to care. This doesn't seem like the right moment to like drop these stakes on me. Like I'm just not. I just didn't care. I was like, this is weird. This is weird.
I feel like I had all of those thoughts and feelings, and then the Variety article was like, Kevin said to put it in, and I went, yeah, I figured.
Yeah,
I figured
exactly how it felt.
Yeah, it really felt forced.
I'm asking this question. We haven't set up anything for this question, so if no one knows, it's fine. But like, is this character a character we should know that Bruce has a kid? Is it didn't any light bulbs go off?
I think so. I think I remember people talking. I haven't read a lot of Hulk anything. I have read zero Planet Hulk. I feel like people were talking about after week 1 that people are like, oh, he's going to Sakaar because the Planet Hulk storyline where he has a kid from Sakaar. I feel like I saw that. But again, I have zero first-person knowledge of any of these storylines.
Right on. Okay. So I guess it's important to future plots. I don't know what plots. Young Avengers featuring Hulk's son? Who knows? Alexis, what was your what the fuck moment of the week?
Similarly to what you were saying, Liz, mine was that Jen didn't actually get the ending that she wanted. That was very frustrating to me. To like lay it out and set it up like that's what was going to happen, and then not do a lot of the things she asked. I was just like, what was the point? So that, to me.
One thing that I would love your take on was how they like ended the court piece of it specifically. Like, why didn't we get a flash forward to the prosecution of what's his face and Intelligentsia? And like, why not that I wanted like a whole Daredevil thing to be like a huge part of the ending, but if we had gotten that kind of 2000s classic future montage, like Jen like got him into jail, like blah blah blah, and then like new screen, like and with a cheesy song in the background, like Jen and Daredevil, or it could have been a Megan Thee Stallion song, right? Like they could have done like that kind of cheesy montagey ending, like Bruce has a son, like they're back on Earth living happily together. Like that would have been so much more in line, I think, with what Jen was saying that she wanted.
I wanted, and this is, I feel like corny in a different way, but like kind of that same vein. I wanted that in the very first episode of this show, it's like just Jen's face and she's like, people with power, blah, 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 blah. I wanted that at the end of this episode. And then the twist to be that was her closing argument for the Intelligentsia case. That's what I wanted. And that felt very like lawyer show to me, you know, to like book in that way. So I was sad. I kept waiting for it. Like I was like, oh, there will be a post-credit where, and then it, you know, didn't happen.
That's your pitch to be in the writer's room. I mean, I'm blown. It's hot in here. I'm going to turn on my fan. Like that's, woo. Hold on. I got to take my headphones off to turn on my fan. Hold on. Woo. Okay. Sly, what do you think about that?
I think it was your note, Alexis, about Kevin's comment about it being a lawyer comedy or whatever. I felt really pissed me off because I was like, this is once again trying to establish this show as a lawyer show, and this is not a lawyer show. Nothing about this show is a lawyer show. It is a show where the main character is a lawyer. And those are two very different distinctions, and it's still salty about it. I wanted a lawyer show. And I think that plays into the not being a huge fan of comedy, and preferring a more like drier, wittier, like comedic style. But yeah, this is not a lawyer show, and they once again were trying to establish it as a lawyer show. And I was like, no, Kevin Robot, you are incorrect. You do not understand what kind of show you're making here.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And as a show, not including myself, of people who watch lawyer shows, I feel like you are authorities with ground to say those kinds of things.
I don't really watch lawyer shows, but I do watch cats that recap lawyer shows. So like,
even more qualified.
I did watch that one that had who was the woman? She's Canadian. Elizabeth, I'm trusting that you know everyone who has ever stepped
all 36 million of them. Lay it on me.
The actress that was on Smallville, not the culty one, the other one.
Yeah.
She did a lawyer show, and I did watch that one. Kristen, I don't know how to say her last name. I fully just Googled Smallville actress lawyer show, and it came up immediately. Sly, what was your what the fuck moment of the week?
Okay, so I didn't write down a what the fuck moment of the week until I was halfway into Thirsty Thursday this week, quite inebriated, and we were talking about the Jessica Parker Kennedy casting and talking about my favorite movie of all time, Another Cinderella Story, in which her character asks, does my leather go with my tutu? And the answer is yes. Leather always goes with the tutu. And JJ said, why did we not see more like leather and tutu with all the like 2010s era fashion.
Mhm.
So my WTF moment that I drunkenly put in this document is, why was Titania not wearing leather and a tutu?
The way I agreed with that comment without having any of that context. Like, and I saw it. That was the one comment I saw before I watched the episode. So I spent the whole episode thinking there was going to be a moment where she ripped off the tutu and we wanted her to keep the tutu, but there was never any tutu. I was like, maybe Sly thought the top was a tutu because it was kind of floofy. I'm like, hard agree. When in doubt, leather and tutu. I just don't know where it existed in this episode.
There's nothing that I love more than when someone puts this offhanded kind of comment into the show doc, and then someone, and I don't just mean you two, because I feel like this has happened to me too, like someone says something, and someone takes it with 100% factual energy, and then goes on to watch the show and be like, I really had my stakes set on this one comment, and in fact, it was nowhere to be seen. I feel like that happened to me every week with Only Murders. I was always the last one to watch that show, and I'd be like, y'all were talking about something that I thought was going to be way more significant. Like,
that time I convinced Liz that She-Hulk was set in the year 2010.
Yes! My mind is blown. Yeah, I also just think like the Titania outfits were so good, and a leather tutu moment would have fit so beautifully within that. Also, JJ knew immediately, Alexis, who you were talking about.
I know we did. Which honestly says a lot about JJ.
It's brilliant. Okay. So a lot happened in this episode. A lot happened in this series. But something that we can't pass up is the opportunity to reflect on Marvel reflecting on dude bro culture. Because haven't we kind of made it our platform to talk about just, we are counter that, or at least we try to be counter that culture. We created this space to give us and others an opportunity to talk about these shows without that kind of energy. So even though I have thoughts on the show overall, things I would have liked to have seen done differently, I do have to say that I'm relieved that Marvel has recognized there's a problem, and I hope that means they're going to actually do something about it moving forward. Like, to me, this was the first step in what can be many, many steps to make things better around here. And I'm willing to celebrate step one. I do think we needed it a long time ago, but we got here. And that's me trying to be positive. How did I do? Did I sell it?
Yeah. I will say I have a lot of questions. Liz shared the Variety article from the creators of She-Hulk with the group chat.
I'll put it in the comments for everyone.
Recently, and when I read through it, there was a comment about Feige cutting out a lot of the segment towards him because the comments were, quote, too mean. And I think that says more about Kevin Feige than it says about the writers. And that makes me really disappointed that he feels like he has to have such a controlling hand in every aspect of this show and not be able to take a step back and have a moment of accountability and say, yeah, I don't make 100% perfect decisions all of the time. There are places where I can improve. The fact that he's not having those thoughts or reactions, I'm not surprised. I am disappointed.
I also think that it validates the statements or the assumptions that we have made constantly, which is the writers are getting slack for things that aren't their fault. Because throughout the many series we've watched, I think about Hawkeye specifically, where we were saying they're doing too much, there's so much happening, they need to zero in. And that's not to say Hawkeye was all of a bad show, but we were kind of like, why is the writing happening in this way? It doesn't make any sense. And then as we've kind of moved through this calendar year, I think we've updated our reflection to be more so like, perhaps the writing does know what it's doing, but the editing is so brutal that we come to this end result that's lukewarm. And to me, this article validates exactly what you're saying, Sly, and that assumption to be true, that the writers are writing shows that would have a greater fit in the TV genre, that would make more sense, that would be more enjoyable to watch, but they're getting too infiltrated with this upper hand and the editing process that goes through that. And I would love to see the stripped down version. Draft 2. Give me draft 2. Like, not the shitty draft 1. Like, draft 2 before it goes to the big editing process.
I thought it was really interesting also that we got thoughts from like 3 different creators, and 2 of them had super contradictory comments about how the inclusion of Sakaar, whatever his name is, was introduced in the show. And one was like, we needed a cameo or something to fill this spot, and Kevin suggested this one, and the other one said we were told we had to include him, so we figured out how to do that. And that was really fascinating to me. I wonder, are both these statements true? Is somebody being a little bit nicer to Kevin Feige? Is there some sucking up happening in the statement?
To me, it read like one person gave the Marvel PR answer, and one person gave the non-Marvel PR answer. And that's not to imply that someone was being rebellious, but perhaps someone read the brief in more detail than the other person. Yeah, because I feel like they're only contradictory because that first statement you mentioned was so much more polished.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was my instinct. Was the first was the PR answer, and the second was not.
And I think that the way that the fans react to that kind of thing is so important. Like, our show is not grand in scale, but like, I think it's important to say that I appreciate that non-PR reaction and kind of being straight up told this is what's happening. Because I can rally behind, like, we needed to do X, Y, Z, and that wasn't a choice we got to make. Like, if that's the truth, I can like wrap my head around it and say, like, okay, I appreciate it better. But the justification, it does work kind of twist, like, it just doesn't sit with me at all. It's like, it doesn't. So tell me what the real answer is. And the real answer is, well, we had to do it. So it was clunky.
I would be really interested on your take as somebody who, studied public relations much more deeply than I did. From my perspective, I think like having a can PR response to a lot of questions is really important, but the best PR responses are grounded in the truth in a very specific way. And it feels like sometimes the PR canned answers are grounded in the most optimized, prettiest relation to the truth they can get away with. And where do you draw that line when you are looking at like PR responses?
Oh, that's a juicy question. Thank you, Sly. Yeah, let's dig into it. This is my philosophy, okay? There's different types of PR responding dependent on situation, right? And different strategies you would use. But to me, the most effective way to write PR responses is always look at what your optimal answer is for the public to receive. Look at the truth of the person who has to say it, and always lean heavier into the truth of the person than the optimal response, because the optimal response doesn't actually exist. Like that is where you get the really robotic, uncaring, not empathetic voice that people don't relate to. When you get the best response generated from honoring the truth of the person who has to say something and supporting that with as much language as benefits your end goal as possible. So for example, with this, I'm gonna make up a fabricated situation, Marvel. I'm not saying this is what happened, but let's just say one of these people has to do this interview, and their truth is, I'm really mad with how the finale ended up. I didn't agree with it, and I want to tell everyone that we were forced to make choices that I didn't agree with, right? Let's just say that was the hypothetical truth of the person. But Camp Marvel is saying, well, we need to say that it's mission critical and an Easter egg for a future thing, and that's why we did it. But the person saying it doesn't agree with that. You need to find a way for that person to honor their feeling, or else no one's going to buy either answer, right? Like if they come across as campy, happy style commentator, people are going to see through that. If they say the pitch piece, people are going to see through that. But obviously they don't want to go to press angry. So like, what is the middle ground? And reading this article, if that hypothetical scenario had any legs to stand on, like I was reading this back and I was like, oh, they did not find the middle ground between the feelings and the fabricated messaging. So I think like someone who's done incredibly well in the Marvel press world recently is Brie Larson, because she hasn't been shying away from how hard it's been on her. And she has been saying things like, well, do people want me back? Like, that's a statement that does make everybody happy, right? Because Marvel would like to know, do people want to see Brie Larson back, right? That's a great thing for her to be saying.
Me, I want to see
Brie Larson back.
Please.
Back. So it's a great statement for her to make, and it's a great key message to give her. Like, don't like. Her answer probably sounds more like, well, is it worth it for me to come back with all the abuse I'm receiving? But she can't say that. So it's like, okay, well, don't say how you're feeling. Answer the question with a question. The question is, do people want to see me back? And she deadpanned it, which makes it feel more authentic. But it doesn't actually hurt anyone in the process. Like, that
Sorry,
was
Alexis,
like,
you left for 5 seconds and we made this comms corner.
Comms corner.
Go for it. I felt so bad. I was like, I'm going to come back and have no clue what was going on. So I'm glad I just don't know what was going on because it was a comms corner. Like, that's much better for me.
It is all good. We were talking about the Variety article, which is how we got to this point. I think you had a chance to read it as well. Did anything stick out to you around what they were saying about the toxic fan culture and things?
I won't say specifically with the article, but the thing I think that really kind of got me was that the article kind of put a pin in that was something that the show wanted to address. But I personally feel that the finale was probably one of the episodes with lesser success in its clarity of calling out toxic fanboy culture. And I think one of the things that for me this show struggled with overall, and I debated on whether or not I wanted to bring this up tonight, because we've talked before, like with Only Murders in the Building, I don't really get comedy. Like, there are certain things about media that I just don't get, right? That just don't click with me. And so to me, where this show struggled was that it went overboard sometimes in putting a point on things, which then made other things that also felt like commentary a little less clear. Like, I had a tendency to second guess them because they weren't as, extravagantly overplayed. So then I was like, well, are you aware that this part is commentary, too? And I don't know that was the experience for the entire audience, but it was my experience. And I thought it was so interesting that they would put a pin in that in the argument or in the article. Like, we were calling out toxic fanboy culture, but then its success in the show itself, I think, would be very varied. Like, there's some episodes where I felt like they did a really good job with it. And then there are some episodes where I feel like they missed the mark on it a little bit.
I am 100% with you there. And I try, when I consume any type of storytelling, whether that be, you know, television, movies, books, you know, transformative works, fan fiction, anything, I try to really hard to buy into the universe that you are setting me in. Like, I don't really believe in the concept of writing something as out of character if you establish within your universe that this is how this character acts. So like, I will buy into a lot of things in fan fiction if you establish it within the contained universe of that story. And I try to have that same energy with shows. So oftentimes when I'm watching something, I am trying so hard to buy into what you are telling me the messaging is, that sometimes when I look at the commentary pieces, I'm like, are you making this as a commentary? Is this self-referential? Or are you trying to get me to buy into that as fact? And that line, I feel like, was very blurry in this show in a lot of places. It was either very much hit over the head, or it was, is this intentional? I don't know. Are you just trying to present this as the truth within your universe? So I had a lot of questions around what was intentional and what wasn't.
It goes back to a point that I think we raise with the most Marvel shows, which is like, what was the conclusion they wanted us to come to as a viewer? Like, I feel like every Marvel show, with the exception, I would say, and I'm hearing Marissa fully in my head as I say this, with the exception of WandaVision, which had some pretty clear ending points, forgetting Multiverse of Madness for a moment as I say that, but had some pretty clear ending points in how we're supposed to feel about some characters, or what we're supposed to interpret about their future. And then like White Vision and how we've just off the, well, putting that aside for a second. To me, this is like another example of all of what both of you have said to me also wasn't wrapped in a way that allows me to feel settled as a viewer. And not in the sense of, I can't wait for season 2 to see what they're doing with this, but like, I don't feel like I am settled with some of what you gave me to think about, and you gave me nothing to end that conversation in my head. Like, it's just going to have to continue forever, possibly. Especially if you keep rewriting things like Multiverse of Madness to WandaVision, where like I got it was just, I don't know where my thought's ending, but like, do you kind of get where I'm going with it?
I'll also say, kind of going off of what I think you were kind of getting at too, Liz, and this came up in the article for me. I mean, I think there were times in the article where it was kind of alluded to the fact that like they wanted certain things, but they were kind of asked to step back. I think maybe you all talked about that while I was gone. But what really hit me after I watched the finale the first time, like I had to kind of sit with it for a second, because I was like, I'm feeling something. I don't know what it is. But what really stuck with me, I think, watching the finale and reading the article, was that I don't trust Marvel. And I think Marvel has kind of earned that, to be honest, has earned my lack of trust. And so to me, when you bring me a project that's calling out toxic fanboy culture, like I want to be excited, but I'm not, because I expect that you'll walk it back in the next one. And I think the reason it was so hit or miss in this show was because they were being asked to maybe downplay some of those points or walk back some of those points. And so, I just remember when I was studying acting, one of the things one of my coaches always told me, and this is like a very standard thing, is like, go big, because if you go big and you're wrong, then at least I know where you're at and we can correct, right? And I think Marvel is in this place where they're not going big on anything, right? It's just like this weird murky middle ground. So I don't know how to feel about it.
It feels like the writers are trying to go big, like you were saying, Liz, with the draft 2s, and then once we get the edited down version, it is very middle of the road. It is very toned down, watered down, diluted, all of the synonyms to what we would have seen in that draft 2.
But what makes that even more frustrating to me is in this finale. They reference that with this Kevin that knows the entertainment algorithm and is making the most perfected product. So like they are telling us that they understand they're operating under an entertainment algorithm that accepts XYZ.
I think what this tells us about the current structure and the current hierarchy is that they 100% wholeheartedly believe that to be true. And we, as outside of that, decision-making hierarchy, can look at it objectively and say, no, you are not making the most optimized choices. You are not telling the best stories to serve your audience, your characters, or your profits, right? They're failing on all three. And, they're never going to 100% fail in profits. They're always going to make a baseline amount of money. The fanboys will always watch all of the things. But when we look at targeting new viewers, targeting a new audience, bringing in more people, they're consistently failing. But because they have this giant cushion of the hardcore audience, it's not as reflected as it could be. And so I think they really, truly do believe that all of these decisions are the most optimized, the best market research, the best they're going to get. And what they end up with is a super middle of the road, not making any bold choices to appease both parties type stories.
Allow me to say what I find myself saying a bit too often in general, which is market research and algorithms cannot inform your heart. They can inform everything else, but they cannot inform your heart and your love. That is something that has to be humans making decisions. Like, what is the heart of She-Hulk? What is the heart of Hawkeye? What is the heart of what we're doing? Because it can't be a value statement determined by the words that performed best in like the last focus group. It has to be someone saying, no, this is what feels right. And there's no amount of data that can make that statement live true. And She-Hulk was so close to me. It was so close to having that heart statement feel real. And it just didn't. Can I share the one moment, besides WandaVision, which I feel actually did really have a heart in a lot of ways? The one moment that to me spoke to Marvel understanding heart was the Bucky with the gun moment in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and that whole sequence with him and Zemo. It wasn't great, but it was a moment to me where I was like, oh, they understand like the depth of that moment in a way that's needed to give him any future outside the box they put him in. And I've been waiting for another moment that made me feel that kind of heart. I don't know, just saying that as a Bucky girl, but like from a moments that could only be built because a human said this feels right. And like we haven't been getting them.
The one exception was Miss Marvel.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say Miss Marvel was the definition of this is a project from the heart. And I think that does have a lot to do with, who the main actor on that show was.
You're so right.
But I like, because we got such a strong personality from Miss Marvel, it, I think, detracted. I would have been interested to see what the fan reaction was if they put She-Hulk before Miss Marvel. I think I would have felt a lot more positively. I think that like idea of a heart statement would have landed a little bit more with She-Hulk if we hadn't just come off Miss Marvel.
And I feel like we would have had a better fan community around Miss Marvel if we had the She-Hulk statement first. Like, dude, bros, we acknowledge XYZ.
Yes.
Now, please appreciate Miss Marvel. Like, perhaps it would have been a nice preparatory moment before entering the horrible discourse that show received.
I think it ties a lot back to the reaction that we saw from Falcon and the Winter Soldier after WandaVision because of the same thing, because those releases got flipped.
Mhm.
And I think coming off of a show that played so deeply into the nostalgia and the history and the culture of these like 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s eras, that going into Falcon and the Winter Soldier really shaped how people are reacting to the story they're trying to tell there.
I love talking to you guys. Go ahead, Alexis. I want to hear what you have to say.
I was just going to say, kind of in defense of She-Hulk, that there were moments that I felt like the show wanted something that it was then not allowed to give. Like there were moments where I felt like there were people in the room who, you know, really want to tell this part of the story, and they're just not being allowed to tell it. Not all the time, but there were definite moments where I was like, oh man, you know, there's someone that is really passionate about telling this part of the story, but that is being squashed for them. Now, there are other parts of the show that I just feel like didn't necessarily work. Mallory Clark's character for me is one that just doesn't work in the year of our Lord 2022. But I do feel, I think that's what was so frustrating to me about this show too, is to feel like this is a show that's supposed to be empowering to women, but really all this show is telling me is that there is still a man above you that is squashing what you want. And I think that was very clear, especially in the article finale kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
It almost showed us its cards a bit too clearly.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I do want to say, which in reflecting on our series, I realized I should have said this a long time ago. And so I'm going to say it tonight. I'm going to say it very loudly. Miss Tatiana acted her ass off. I am so excited about her being in the MCU because she, especially in this finale to me, like did what she needed to do. And to me, because we rewatched a bunch of episodes before we watched this finale, and rewatching her with Daredevil, which must have been a moment where she knew as an actress, like, I am up against a fan favorite. This is the moment that people are going to watch, and it's going to be in every edit, and it's going to be in every article, and he can do no wrong here. It will come on me. And to me, she held her, not to say his acting was like out of this world, but just in those stakes, she really did hold her own and gave a performance that was so like strong as what am I trying to say? It was so strong from a narrative that like it didn't even bother me. Like he didn't overshadow her. She didn't let him take her light. I think he also didn't act in a way that was trying to take light, which helped. But like I am excited that she is here, and I hope that helps drive forward more moments that will help this whole cause moving forward. And having more women like her recruited and put in the forefront of Marvel, I'm like, oh, there's so many good, strong women that we have. And not just women, but just people that we have that can like come in and continue to just shift this.
And I'll say going off of that, and this is kind of, I guess, ironic-ish, because these are actually two moments in which the writing really bothered me. But I think that she managed to be incredibly genuine as Jen. Like there's a moment where she goes back to leave a note after she's destroyed the parking garage. And then there's a moment in this episode where she's like, well, what's the most cost-effective way to do this, right? And the writing in both of those bothered me because I don't think they hit hard enough how much a part of this stereotypical woman's experience it is to apologize for things that you shouldn't be apologizing for. I don't think they hit that enough, but I think in those, I completely believed her in those moments that like it was her genuine reaction to, you know, make the world easier for other people. And I think I don't think that's something all actresses could have brought to the role.
Absolutely.
I don't want to try to feel like I'm pitting shows against each other too much, but I am curious to you two, how you feel about this idea of representation. Because, you know, coming at it from a non-woman perspective, I felt like how Kamala Khan was presented was super relatable, and there was a lot there I could connect to and empathize with. I feel like how Jen Walters was presented, I didn't have as much there to relate to. And I don't know how much of that ties into the whole conversation of like, never mind, I don't want to make that point on there. But like, how did you feel about like connecting to her as a character, as this like idea of representation?
Can I start? Do you mind if I jump in, Alexis?
God,
well,
please.
I figured, but I didn't want to cut you off if you had a point. I from episode 1, I immediately felt like they were establishing range. To me, like Miss Marvel was, I'm pretty sure I said this during our after parties, but it was such a beautiful representation of like a point in time in a woman's life and like the coming of age story of woman and being a teenager and like all of these beautiful things. It's like just talking about womanhood here. And then to me, She-Hulk is like a completely different moment in time. Like, no, we're not coming of age. We've come of age. We have our own apartment. We are a lawyer. We've established our self-worth. We're not going through the same journey we did when we were 17. Like, we've got some stuff under us and some life under us. And what does that side of womanhood look like? And to me, I also had a lot of moments watching the show of feeling like I related to the idea of being a woman in the workplace and like some of what she dealt with in those moments that made me feel, like it's so cool to see writing that reflects how shitty things can be. And like, you know, when you're waiting outside a bar and like guys are hitting on you and you're making up stories about where you're going. Like there were moments in her journey that other Marvel characters couldn't have done in the same way or couldn't have spoken to in the same way. So I was excited by the range that she has helped establish. Like something that Captain Marvel will never be able to do is tell those stories in that way, because Captain Marvel's like from space. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, for sure.
she did live life, but like we can't fully relate to her because she's not here living the life that we're living. And also she's like the most powerful being. Like we love her.
I mean,
whatever.
she was brainwashed and brought up in a completely different culture, so we can't. There's
so,
never going to be a moment of relation there. Yeah.
And there was that moment with the motorcycle in Captain Marvel where like she takes the motorcycle and the outfit, right, from like the guy. And like that was trying to be a moment like that, but that never really worked for me. And it felt like a forced feminist moment, as opposed to like in this show, her being like Jen's ability to make commentary about her life in a really, like Alexis said, genuine way, supported by a performance that was so genuine in those moments too. So yeah, that's what spoke to me. Alexis, what about you?
I would say that there were aspects that I found incredibly relatable, and there were aspects that I assumed were probably relatable to other people, just weren't relatable to me because of who I am, like as a person, because of the things that make me me that Jen doesn't have, that make Jen, right? Like I would argue, though people have talked about Jen being someone who is kind of autistic coded, I would argue that my autism presents itself differently. So there are aspects of the show that I assumed other people probably related to that I just didn't. But there were parts like standing outside the bar that were really relatable to me, or always apologizing for things that, I mean, I never apologize for things that I don't need to apologize for. But that was relatable to me. I will say something that I felt like the show could have done in Jen's character that they didn't do was something that I think it's a part of a lot of different journeys. I think you could, it's sometimes a part of a journey that comes up in a lot of stories about people of color. But I think it is also a part of a woman's journey, or the female, the women's experience, to be as good as a man and not get the credit And I feel like that something I really have struggled with in my journey is having the same amount of intelligence as somebody else and having the same amount of credentials as somebody else, but hitting the glass wall because I'm who I am and they're a straight white man. And I feel like there were so many opportunities in this show to put light on that journey. And because they could never decide whether or not Jen was truly competent, we didn't get them. And so that was a little frustrating to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes back to Sly, your entire point of like this being a lawyer show. Like if they had put their eggs more in the lawyer show basket, we could have explored other sides of that. Another thing that I was thinking, I forgot to say, and then Alexis was talking, and then I was like, I can't freaking forget this. I think that in rewatching the episode with Daredevil, it occurred to me specifically that like Jen is dressed, right? And they make commentary about how she dresses throughout the whole show and like, where'd you buy your outfits? And like, she's very corporate with like high necklines and like, she doesn't really dress in revealing cuts, like low cuts, tight outfits. Like that's not really who Jen is as a person. And yet we still see her explore her sexual life and her sexuality and like that whole side of her. And I think it's cool that we were able to establish like women can have sexuality and have a side of their life, and it doesn't have to be a character that dresses in what we would traditionally consider like sexy outfits. Basically, like we had a character who was sleeping with multiple people on this show, who was also like rolling up in like a hoodie and leggings, or like a really high neck and like clothes that weren't form-fitting, and like twerking with Megan Thee Stallion in corporate wear. Like that was very fascinating to me to see that explored, and the whole hookup culture side.
I will say, and this is kind of veering off topic a little bit, so hopefully somebody can like veer me back, but I do think it is a testament to the show, and I didn't really realize it actually until you pointed it out last week, Liz, that they have kind of in their depiction, like their depiction of Daredevil was written through the female gaze. And I think if this show would have had different people involved, like Jen's sexuality, like Jen probably still would have slept with a bunch of men, but it would have looked much different. And so I do think it's a testament to the show that they wrote that to be something that very, like the line that got me in this episode was, I need co-counsel here. I was like, there's some woman in the room that wrote that line. Like I can't see, you know, some of the men that have written other Marvel projects writing that line the way that it was. So I did think that was a testament of the show to kind of take this character and craft him to fit like in their universe a little bit more.
I will say I'm so happy that that landed. Because I am somebody who really appreciates a good slow burn. And so that aspect of this show and this character did not really land for me personally, but I'm very happy that for people who that would land for, that it did.
Mm-hmm.
I find it, I don't know if this is a question that we want to talk about on air, so if we don't want to, it's fine. But I didn't really consider how like the Daredevil plot specifically. Let's just assume for a moment we're all Daredevil fans, okay? Let's just unfortunately put that hat on for a moment, okay? Let's just try to be Daredevil fans, Matt Murdock fans. This Matt Murdock, okay? Just bear with me for the sake of the conversation. How the Daredevil plot would land for people that enjoy Daredevil but don't necessarily like would not have the hookup culture plot line land for them. Like I didn't consider that like intersection of fandom. Like does his involvement in the show still stand if you're not invested in his relationship with Jen, or does it seem like a write-off?
It didn't until the family barbecue. Like that was the moment where it landed. I was like, like the banter, like the bar scene for me did not land at all because again, that's just not who I am as a person. But the family barbecue, I was like, I get it. If I was the type of person this would land for, his full appearance probably would have, but They really just snuck it in at the very end for me.
Alexis, this is something I meant to say to you last week, and then I forgot. Jen does the fourth wall break during the Daredevil bar scene where she's like, are we all feeling this? Or whatever it is she says. And I was like, no, I can guarantee you I can list people for which this is not landing.
I have directly in my notes. I was like, I'm sure this is landing for you, but it's not landing for me.
So I have two thoughts here. One is that I feel like if you were like a fan of the Daredevil show, and that let's say I think there is a higher ratio of fans of the Daredevil show that are toxic fanboys than those that tuned into She-Hulk. And I think if you took all of those people and you had them watch Daredevil and She-Hulk, it would not land for them. But as someone who is a staunch, not a Daredevil fan, there were moments where I was like, oh, damn you. Like the barbecue, where I was like, oh, we've got the dimples going and like we're kind of in over our head and like, oh, damn it. So I will say that it did hit a little bit. The other thing that you made me think of, Liz, is that I wrote in my notes for this episode that I really wish people could fourth wall break their emotions all the time because it is incredibly helpful for me. Like there was so many times I was like, I don't know that I know what Jen's feeling. And then she would explain it. And I was like, oh God, thank you.
I have a business idea that we're going to talk about off air. I don't want anyone to steal it. Remind me after the show. Sly, what were you going to say?
I will say to the people who have seen Daredevil, whether they would consider themselves would consider themselves fans or not, there was a lot of commentary about does Daredevil fuck, and to that I will say he had at least 3, if not more, love interests within the first 2 seasons, like more than one love interest per season. So to that I would say yes, absolutely, he does fuck. Get over yourself.
The issue there, which I found so fascinating, was not that really what people were saying is, does Daredevil sleep with women? But where that was really coming from is the fact that Daredevil did the walk of shame and Jen didn't. I don't think that conversation would have happened if it was Jen that was walking out of the house. The issue was that Jen was equally involved in that dance, and he was the one that went on his walk of satisfaction. That was the issue. It wasn't that he slept with somebody. Daredevil sleeps with people all the time. Don't come at me with your like, oh, he's Catholic, he doesn't sleep with people bullshit. Like, he's also killing people in the street and tossing back tequila, right? Like,
I did have like questions about that walking scene.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically the fact that, like, okay, this is coming from someone that I don't know how the Daredevil situation works. I don't know how the costume works, but he wasn't wearing his helmet thing, and he wasn't wearing his shoes. And I was like, do you know where you're
on?
What?
He didn't have the like cowl on in the suit?
I didn't think he did.
I thought he did.
I thought he had the cowl on, but not the shoes.
The shoes.
He did.
Yeah,
okay,
that's where I was at.
Okay, because in my head, I was like, how does he know where he's going home? Because I thought they were like making out the whole way home. So I'm like, that gives him no... How did they get home? Where is he going? What happened to his things? Is he going back? Like, I just had many logistical questions as he was leaving. I can't just do a write-off scene like that without having like immediately 20 questions. Like, I hope he was walking to an Uber. That would make me very happy.
Also had a lot of questions about the logistics. And then I went, that's not what they're trying to get out of me in this scene. And I just put it in a box and put it on the shelf.
I would like someone to write a fan fiction just outlining the logistics of him getting back to Hell's Kitchen. That would be fantastic. Thank you so much. But let's stop talking about men and continue talking about She-Hulk. How's that sound? We're at the end of the episode. Where would we rate She-Hulk as a series? Not like a definitive rating, but just how do we feel about it in the sense of all of the series that we've watched? Is it making a high end of the spectrum, low end of the spectrum, middle of the pack? Where's She-Hulk coming in for us?
Here's the thing. If I'm just going like generally, just like full picture, I would put it on the higher end of the middle. When we're talking about Marvel specifically, it's near the top. And that's just because comparatively, it's definitely on the much better end looking at Marvel projects.
For me, it's I already know it's one of the more rewatchable shows for me. And not just because it's comedy and I tend to gravitate towards comedy in my rewatching habits, but because there were beats of the show. The comedy. There are beats of the show that like I appreciate and would want to come back to. And like there are other shows that we've watched that I would assume I would want to go back to, but like I haven't rewatched Hawkeye and I really thought I would. Maybe I will now that like Christmas is coming up again, but I don't know. So I feel like it's high in my list because I think it's more rewatchable, but then I think about how emotional I was watching Ms. Marvel and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and like I'm not sure if it makes that mark for me. Alexis?
I don't know that I'm going to go into that much detail. I struggle to rate things, but I am going to put it in like the top third.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. Oh, this is how we should have done it. JJ says 4 Alpines and a taco. I give it.
You're going to make me get out the note where I explain the logistics of Alpine math. Hold on. Give me a second.
I would give this show 5 out of 5 Alpines. I really would. Based on vibes, but also I think I have less problems with She-Hulk than I do other Marvel shows and properties. Therefore, I think it deserves 5 out of 5 Alpines. Okay, here we go.
Okay. So our standards is 1 point is an Alpine. Half a point is an Alpine with no accessories. But 3 tacos also equals 1 point. And 1 tortilla warmer equals 2.5 tacos. So it's like 66% of a point or whatever. However math works.
So to me, She-Hulk is a full 15 tacos. And they're gluten-free.
See, that's my question, because I feel like if we're putting dietary restrictions on the tacos, we have to double the number of tacos.
Yeah.
So if it's gluten-free, would you need to double the tacos?
You know what? Is the true question whether they're corn tortilla tacos or soft shell tacos? Because that's really what makes or breaks a gluten-free taco. It's what you put it in, or if it's a taco bowl.
Like the amount of flour that goes into tortillas in this household, like you would die. I'm just going to be real honest.
Valid. Very valid. Very valid. Okay. So for me, it's 5 Alpines, which translates to 15 tacos. And I'm going to leave my math there.
Hear me out. 4 Alpines and 3 tacos.
Sure. I like that. Yep. 4 Alpines and 3 tacos. Alexis?
That's 4.5. Is that like 4 Alpines and a tortilla warmer purchased at Home Depot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
is there
4.5 would be 4 Alpines and 1 without accessories.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I want the tortilla warmer though.
Okay. Right. So it's a little over. It's like 0.7-ish, I think.
Okay.
Like
does it matter where the tortilla warmer is purchased?
No.
Okay. Only to you? You're the only person who cares about that?
So yeah, I'm gonna go for a tortilla warmer.
Okay. Sly?
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna say I'll give it 3 Alpines, a tortilla warmer, and a taco. A singular taco.
I like it. I like it. That's a good way to end it. And then perhaps maybe next week we'll let Marissa give some closing thoughts on She-Hulk. If Marissa ever decides to come back to the show, Marissa's coming back. And we will be doing a late birthday bash for Missa Bobissa, the Missa Bobissa birthday bash. Try and say that.
Why didn't we just do a birthday bash for me this week is the real question. I actually showed up for the show this week.
Do you want to do the Halloween special can be the Sly birthday bash?
No, I don't need a birthday bash. It's fine. I'm just giving you all shit.
I thought last year we were threatened within like.
Yeah, I do remember being threatened over celebrating Sly's birthday. I'm pretty sure it was in the rules of engagement. Sorry.
We were threatened over celebrating one birthday mark. We were not threatened over celebrating my half birthday.
Okay, cool.
So.
Which was this week. We should have celebrated your half birthday.
Just
it was also
Tim's
the day before Marissa's birthday, so we had back-to-back celebration plans.
Let's discuss it in the after party off air. I do want to raise a very important question, which is if the tortilla warmer isn't from Home Depot, do we even want it?
Yes, because Home Depot doesn't sell tortilla warmers.
Okay. Also, here's the situation.
What's the count at this point? It's
I was gifted some very lovely tortilla warmers. So I feel like at this point, if I say no, I am in trouble with a lot of people who were already extending me, a white woman, a lot of grace. So we're just going to go with yes, conditionally.
Beautiful. I'll take it. And with that, we have successfully ended our She-Hulk journey. Hooray! Except Marissa's going to comment next week, so we really haven't. But in terms of like capping off the episode and finding our conclusion, we've ended She-Hulk. Yay! We've done it. Where do we go from here? We have not scripted how we want to end the show, but that's fine. Typically, we would say maybe something under the radar and then plug our socials and what we're doing over the next week. Because my life hasn't been chaotic enough, will be in Toronto all week. So if you want some Toronto content, Instagram's going to be full of it. Maybe I'm going to be quite busy. And it's Midnight's release week. Once again, reminding y'all, have a healthy, happy, thriving release week. Don't let fandom intimidate you into enjoying new Taylor Swift music. It's like Christmas in October. And I will be doing as much content as I can amidst the travel madness around this release. I'm very excited about it. And I'm hoping to hold some space for everyone to enjoy it with me this week. So that's what I'll be up to. Producer Liz everywhere on the internet. Sly, what's up with you?
Lately, apparently I've been getting a reputation for being a prolific gambler that I absolutely do not, that's not accurate, but apparently that's the reputation I've been getting. I have also been hyperfixating on a new show. So I'm so sorry to everybody in my life. I will become insufferable when we get a season 2 in November. If you want to find me on the internet, you can try at SlyCloneMC everywhere. There might not be new posts. Twitter's been pretty consistent. But if you want to see me yelling about things, there's many places you can do it. You can find me live on TikTok every week on Thursday nights. Maybe not next week because JJ did in fact get banned during our last live. So we'll see how next week shapes up. You can find me on Point in Progress, where I'm yelling about video games on the Point in Progress podcast, and also our other podcast, MC University, where I make my way through all of the MCU Marvel content. We do already have one episode up featuring one of my lovely co-hosts, Marissa, who's not here. There is a future Liz episode coming. There is a future Alexis episode coming that has not been recorded yet. Very exciting things. And you can find both of those at Point in Progress, wherever you find anything on the internet, all the podcast platforms, YouTube, socials, etc., etc. I feel like this has gone on way longer than my usual spiel. Alexis, please cut me off.
I'm Alexis at Just Alexis Blake, and I talk about life and stuff I watch on television and academia and my weird experiences at Starbucks. So you can follow me there. And then I have a lot of old Marvel takes on at Alexis Blake Reads Comics. You can also check that out. That is me. I am not on 72 platforms, podcasting about everything under the sun and being brilliant. Ta-da.
I think we're all doing great. But you know what we didn't do this week? We didn't let Sly say our catchphrase.
Oh. Before I do that, I want to say go follow Marissa everywhere at Missababissa. If Marissa was here, she'd be good at plugging our show account socials, which is at AfterPartySHO on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Go subscribe on YouTube and all of the YouTube things that Marissa always lists off that I haven't watched YouTube in like years, so I don't know anymore. And with that, we're no longer here. We're still queer, and we are throwing the after party. We'll see you next week.
So good.
Liz did not have the title card pulled up yet, which validates me never having it up. Thank you, Liz.
Bye.
Bye.